been lit, boy. Everything goes.
We now return you to regular programming.
All right, guys, it's been a while. It's been a hot minute, but we're back and we're up again. Going down to the Big Easy again with a good friend of mine, family member, I consider him, owner of Morgan Mixers and Hitch Beverage, Michael Morgan.
Yeah.
Hello, guys. How y'all doing?
We're doing good.
Doing a lot better than you, man. I bet you guys were on pins and needles the last couple of days, man. Not one, but potential of 2 hurricanes coming towards that Big Easy.
Pins, needles, fingernails, all those things, man. Thank God that Marco kind of fizzled out at the very end, and unfortunately, Laura didn't. It's going to be a tough time for Southwest Louisiana and for Southeast Texas, a very southeastern point of Texas as well.
And I can only imagine, man.
Yeah.
Like, I was looking into that storm today, and I think they said that, like, the winds are up to, like, 145 now.
Yeah, it was insane for a storm to. Usually, what happens with these storms is that the closer they get to landfall, they actually start to interact with the land and weaken.
Yeah.
But Laura did the exact opposite. She got closer to land and actually strengthened. The winds picked up from 135 to 150 right before landfall. So I mean, it was just insane that they were really thinking that the storm surge was going to be catastrophic. Thank goodness, except for right where landfall happened, the low-lying areas right around Cameron. Most of the areas didn't sustain a lot of storm surge. I think they were predicting 20 to 25 feet. It only ended up being about 10 feet. If only 10 feet is a good thing,
Wow.
But that kind of stayed to the mainly coastal areas, and it didn't inundate Lake Charles, which is one of the major cities in that area. But there was so much wind damage.
And you said this is gonna not hit you, right? You said you guys are basically like out of the path now a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually up in Arkansas now. It's downgraded to a tropical depression, and it's actually in Arkansas. It's about to make a path through the Ohio Valley. Actually, they're saying by Saturday or Sunday, it's actually the remnants are actually going to be you guys' way, and it may reform once it gets out into the North Atlantic.
And the thing that kills me is a couple weeks ago we got hit with that little hurricane that came up from Florida. And we ended up with 7.5 inches of rain, and our basement was flooded. And every time I see this, man, I cringe because we're not in a low-lying area. We're actually on a hill, but for some reason, man, we get water.
And I saw some of those videos on Instagram and TikTok of like some of the oceans and lakes around Texas and New Orleans, dude. Like that water was high.
Well, you know what's scary? I saw the weather lady last night. I think she was somewhere in Texas, and she actually choked up and couldn't even finish the newscast for the weather. And then I heard something today. It said that this was the first hurricane in 165 years to hit Louisiana that had the strongest wind gusts of 175 miles an hour when it made landfall.
Right.
Wow.
That's the thing. And it just had everyone just terrified, man, because we know that I'm a Katrina survivor. We lost our home in Katrina. So whenever there's a storm that's potentially going to impact this area, I don't really sleep.
Yeah,
Even if I know it's not going to hit this particular area, I'm still a nervous wreck. I'm still on pins and needles because I just immediately begin to empathize with what I know those people are going to go through.
I can only imagine, man.
I didn't get any sleep last night, and all day today while I was working, I'd had the TV station in Lake Charles. They're actually broadcasting out of Baton Rouge. I had it in the background, just listening to it like the entire day because, I just had to know that, the folks were getting help and, getting what they need because, man, I'll tell you what, folks came to our rescue when we needed it here after Katrina. So.
Is there any parts that are actually being hit hard from this right now, or is it basically just fizzling out?
Well,
Oh
now
no, it's gone now. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like I said, it's actually in Arkansas now. Well, chugging out of Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
headed toward Missouri, Ohio, in the Ohio Valley right
Yeah.
now. So it's moving at a pretty good clip right now, but it's still feeding. Those bands are still feeding moisture from the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
So it's still going to be a tornado, rain, wind event wherever whatever path it takes until it gets back out into open water. You
Now
know,
I,
so
I
it's
I messaged Lynn last night from Houston. I messaged you, your mom, and Sean this morning. Now Sean was in good shape. He got that new boat, you
Yeah,
know.
I saw that
right,
video of him. I saw that
right.
video of him.
But
Oh yeah.
when I saw that it was gonna go between Houston and New Orleans and miss kind of, I mean, you guys got the outer bands probably more than Houston did.
Yeah, we're actually getting more of the outer bands today,
Okay.
because those are those feeder bands that pull the moisture in from the Gulf. Those are actually going right over southeast Louisiana right now as the storm goes east. So it's probably going to be like this for the rest of the evening, just rain off and on,
Yeah.
which is fine. I can deal with that. You know, I can deal with that. So yeah, we'll just have to tolerate that for the next few hours, and then, like I said, once it goes further up into the Ohio and Missouri Valley, at that point, we'll start to clear out
I'm
and
definitely
dry up a
happy it
little
veered
bit.
away from you guys. You guys didn't take any crazy damage or anything like that.
But for
Absolutely.
those who have never been to New Orleans, it's amazing how low the city actually sits below the Mississippi.
I remember the first time I saw it. I was like, that's when I saw was it the levees?
Well, we took you to the levees, but when you're down at the Riverwalk and you walk up
Oh yeah,
over
no,
the
yeah.
levee and you
Yeah,
see like the river is right there, and
yeah.
it doesn't
If
take
you
much.
stand at the bottom of the levee, if you're at the riverfront, say you're uptown, and you
Hmm.
stand at the bottom of the levee out on the riverfront, the river is actually above your head.
And that's what I
That's,
said to him when I saw I was like, that's the levee, and the water's like,
Yeah.
I mean, basically
yeah.
higher.
Yeah, it's a bowl between the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain is where New Orleans sits. It sits in a small bowl right between those two bodies of water.
It's crazy.
Now, Mike,
So
how long do you watch the news before you make a decision for you and your wife to say we got to get out of here? And then where do you go? Do you go to Mississippi? Do you go up by your mom and dad up that way?
well, two things. If it gets beyond Category 1, we're
Mm.
out. And it just depends on the projected path of the storm. If the storm is projected to swing east, we're going to go west and vice versa. I usually make it a habit, and if I go north, I'm going like to Dallas, somewhere like that,
Good
because what
choice.
happens is these storms. Oh, there we go. What happens is these storms tend to inundate the entire state. So
Yeah.
even if you go north, you're still going to feel the effects of it. So I like to try to go either east or west if I can. And if I do go north, I make sure it's a pretty good distance
Did
away,
you
you
did
know.
you stay put this time or did you?
Oh no, we stayed home this time, but we
Mhm.
were prepared. We had everything prepped. We had shopped and had water, and battery packs were all charged. We had cash. So I mean, we were ready in the event that something happened, and we were also packed in the truck and ready to leave at a moment's notice if we needed to as well. So
Now,
No.
did you find it
yeah.
hard with especially everything being slow in the markets as far as stock? Like, I mean, you throw a hurricane in there. I mean, there's got to be like nothing on the shelves.
Yeah, it's always tough, and you gotta, down here, we know that hurricane season is June and November, so
Hmm.
around late May, early June, you really should start
Stocking
thinking
up.
about that.
Yeah.
Getting your documents together in waterproof bags, and
Got
keeping
it.
a bag packed, and just in case you got to get out in a hurry, and keeping cash on hand, staying fueled up in your vehicle.
You got to load those
Keeping,
mixers up too.
Oh yeah.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I mean, we we have to, down here it's just a prep that we go through, every June,
Yeah.
and you don't relax again until around Thanksgiving
That's
is my
crazy.
rule of thumb.
I couldn't imagine going through something like that up here. I mean,
Yeah, and it's every year. I mean, I'm 53. I'm used to it now.
yeah.
We just always have that discussion because around that time of year too, the media organizations locally here start start with the reminders about being prepped for hurricanes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's far out of anyone's consciousness when those times come. So even if you tend to forget about it, if you watch any news at all, they'll remind you. They're usually a half-hour special on hurricane preparation and stuff like that. They'll go through checklists of stuff that you should have if you're going to ride it out, stuff that you should pack if you're going to leave. So um, you get the chance to get prepared for it, and you get used to it,
Yeah.
Now,
Like
this,
you guys deal with snow. I mean, there's no way I could deal with snow like
I
that.
tell you-
There's no
I hate
way.
snow.
but I tell you what, the last couple of years we have been lucky.
We didn't even have
We
snow
haven't
last
had
year.
snow last. I mean, and it was a mild.
It's not
winter.
normal. It's not normal.
I mean, last year I think we were in the mid to upper 30s most of the winter. We only had a couple real cold nights, and now that's warm for us.
That's weird to
Wow.
think about.
Yeah, like I could have
Dang.
wore shorts all year last year. That's how warm it was.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's good.
Well,
It's
that's
good, but you
that's-
got to think
that's
like there's
that-
got to be something wrong with the world if it's not snowing up here and it's almost 30 degrees in January.
Well, they keep talking about that ice pack melting. If that melts and
Yeah.
the oceans rise, I might have oceanfront property
Yeah,
in a
you're
couple
gonna
of
have
years.
some ocean front. Absolutely. Yeah, well, look, we're almost on the verge of having it here in New Orleans. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we just got to stay environmentally aware.
Mhm.
We just have to. I mean, with folks have kids now, and we want to make sure that we leave something for them
Yeah, absolutely.
other than a mess. You know,
Yeah.
we
Now,
absolutely do.
I don't want to talk dollars and cents as far as what it costs, but do you have to have special homeowners insurance being down there since you're in a hurricane zone and since you're like in a flood zone?
Well, we keep flood insurance.
Okay.
I mean, flood insurance, and believe it or not, even after in the post-Katrina era, there are a good bit of folks here that have decided against having flood insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Which, for the life of me, if you're anywhere in the deep South, you got to have flood insurance because
Yeah.
anywhere in the South can flood at any given time. From Brownsville, Texas, all the way to Miami. I mean, you got to have flood insurance. It's just a must. So we make sure we keep flood insurance on the house. And when Katrina did hit, I mean, it saved us.
Yeah.
It absolutely saved us.
Didn't you tell me that like in the South that there's no basements like there are up here?
There's
no.
there's no basements.
No,
Most of the
no,
houses
no.
like we lived in, our house was on stilts.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me, like
Yeah,
on blocks and
if-
stuff, right?
Yeah, if you have a basement, you have to go upstairs to get in your front door. And actually, your basement is just the first floor on the ground. It's not really a basement
Yeah.
built into the ground per se. There's no way you dig 4 feet here, pretty much anywhere in the city, you're going to hit water.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I'm
Yeah.
assuming with all the
Yeah.
floods and hurricane, like they'd be pointless to have a basement.
Nah, you
But-
can't. There are no basements except when you get in maybe like North Louisiana. There's some basements in those areas, but in Southeast Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana, nah, no basements.
But the
No
the
basements.
downside of not having basements is like when New Orleans gets those freak cold months, and you get that frost, all the pipes under the house break.
Yeah,
That happened to us.
Well, I remember when like Lynn and Kevin came here and like you were excited to show them the new basement and like I'm like, why is this such a cool thing?
They
And,
don't
like,
have
they don't
basement.
have them down there.
No.
no basements.
Well, Mike, how's COVID been down in New Orleans?
It's been quite a challenge. So much has happened since the last time we spoke to you guys. My wife and I both ended up having COVID.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Thank God it wasn't a serious case for either one
Yeah,
of us.
thank God.
Didn't require hospitalization or anything. But man, so many. My sister's mother-in-law succumbed to it, and quite a few people that we know
Wow.
did not make it.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
it's been a rough go.
How was it for
Yeah.
you as far as symptoms and like?
Did you lose your taste
it
buds and
was-
your smell?
Now, the funny thing, I never did. Most of the time, my symptoms were at night. And the crazy thing, it was like, Ty, it was like at precisely 8:30 every night. I just went from feeling okay to just feeling like I was going to die.
Oh, wow.
man.
Every night at the same time, I'd be sitting on the couch with Robin, and I'd look at her and be like, okay, I'm going upstairs and go lay down. And it would just hit me all at once, the same time, every night for about 2 weeks.
Mm-mm.
And but again, I never did have really any any breathing distress or anything like that. It was mostly headaches, body aches, fevers, chills, sweats, those type things.
Yeah.
So almost like the
And
flu.
kind of the same, right? Kind of the same for my wife, except she did lose her sense of taste for a few days.
And that
But it
stinks
has
being
come
down
back.
there in New Orleans, man. You
Yeah,
need your taste buds down there.
exactly. Exactly. But thank goodness, and we kind of just isolated my mom completely. My mom lives on the West Bank, so we did not allow her to have any
Yeah.
visitors. We got all of our groceries delivered. No visitors whatsoever,
Hmm.
just via phone. If you wanted to drive up and while she stood at the front door, you sat in your car in the driveway and talked to her,
Yeah.
that's fine. But we didn't allow anyone in the house because my mom just made 75, and I did
Yeah.
not want
Nah.
her to get sick
Wow.
No, no.
in any way, shape, or form.
Well, we're
So,
happy you and your wife are doing okay.
oh yeah,
Could
we're
you
doing
imagine? That's
fine,
gotta
man.
affect your appetite. And picture yourself eating food without taste buds.
Oh
That's
yeah,
gotta be terrible.
and even without losing my sense of taste, I lost like about 15 pounds during that time because
Yeah.
I really wasn't eating anything.
That's
You
But
know.
crazy.
now we talked to Rob Ryan, and he basically said the best thing about New Orleans is the food, which I know. So you'll get that weight back.
Oh yeah. Oh look, it's already back, dude. It's back with a vengeance now.
It
It's
doesn't
back
take
with a
long to get
vengeance.
that back.
Nah, it's back with a vengeance. Yeah, yeah. Rob would know because every time I would see him, it would be at some restaurant. So yeah, he would know. He was definitely a fan of the cuisine here when he liked to hang out at this one particular spot on Napoleon and Magazine, and no, was it? Yeah, Napoleon and Magazine. He loved to hang out at this one particular spot. You'd go in there, and if he was in a real good mood,
He bought rounds for
be
everybody.
buying around in the house. Yep, be around for
Yep.
drinks for everybody. So, oh yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so we're good now, thank goodness. Actually, my father-in-law dealt with a case of it as well, but like ours, his was very minor,
See,
and he
I
came out of it fine.
I see. I don't know if I was. I mean, clearly I had to be exposed to it because Nicole she had a surgery and she had to get tested for it. Now
Hmm.
she was sick back way early, like in December when they didn't have testing yet. She had like 103
It was
fever.
early, like I want to say March though.
No,
It was
that
right.
was
I thought it was
December.
right before I left for my trip.
But I was begging her to. You gotta go to the hospital. You
Yeah.
gotta go to the hospital. She didn't want to
She's
go.
thick-headed though.
So we piggybacked, and then she's a nurse of all things too. So
Right.
we piggybacked all this meds on her. And then the fever finally broke, but she was down and out for like 3 weeks.
Oh
So
yeah, I can believe it.
long story short, she went to get her surgery and they tested her and she had the antibodies for
Cause she had to
COVID
get blood.
because
There
she had
you
to have.
go.
So
Yep.
I didn't kiss her for 3 weeks, but I laid in bed with her for 3 weeks. So I was technically exposed to it.
Right.
So I don't know what to think anymore. Like
I mean, if anything, I feel like she gave us antibodies. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
we're being exposed to
like
it,
like I go to work every day. I have to wear a mask, and it really stinks.
sucks, man.
I'm to the point now where I just want to put it in God's hands and say, look, you're gonna protect me. I have faith in you. You're not gonna let me down.
Well, you think about like I work in retail. Think about how many people I see a day.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. As clean as you want to be, as many precautions as you want to take, it's almost impossible to think about trying to avoid it. You know, it's like impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you freak yourself out, you're gonna go insane.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't take precautions, but
Mhm.
But
it's crazy.
how tough is it down there? Because like is Bourbon Street closed? Is anything open now?
Pretty much no. Most of there's a moratorium on any open bar rooms and lounges in the city right now, because when they did try to lift some of the restrictions, everybody just went back crap crazy and
Yeah.
hanging out all over the place, no kind of protection, and then the numbers just surged again. So it kind of shut everything down again. It was only after about a week or so, man. I mean, it was amazing how quickly the numbers just shot back up
That's
like
yeah.
a rocket.
Crazy.
But to me, with the mask really doesn't bother me. My thing with the mask is that I sometimes forget it and I have to make a U-turn, go back to my truck and get it if
Yeah.
I'm going in somewhere. It doesn't bother me. And like your wife, my wife's an RN as well.
Mm-hmm.
So wearing a mask for her is really nothing new.
No.
My thing is, if it's something that has been proven to help, and if we want to get past this and get back to what's quote unquote normal, if I have to suffer through wearing a mask for a couple months, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But I'm and if folks don't want to wear a mask, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But
It
I
should be
want
right.
you to right. But I want you to respect the folks that do decide to wear it. Don't crowd them.
Yeah.
Do do the right thing. Give them their social distance.
Mhm.
If you see me wearing a mask, you can see that I'm trying to adhere to the CDC guidelines.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to wear a mask, that's fine, but just give me my space.
Yeah.
If you do that, then we're cool. It's fine.
It's a great way to
But
put it.
but also when folks that are, and for lack of a better term, anti-mask, they go into these establishments where the owners in the city, for that matter, are requiring masks, and then they chastise the poor people that are working in these places. Those people aren't making the rules.
No.
Those people are abiding by city ordinances and what have you. And there's so many instances now where the folks that don't want to wear a mask are just going crazy on the people that are telling them,
I
hey, you
know,
need to
man.
There's
wear
a whole
crazy.
YouTube channel on
Dude,
that.
what you should really do is go talk to your legislator.
Yeah.
Go ream out your legislator if you've got a problem with that, but don't ream out the person that's just trying to make a living.
Yeah, for real. It's
But
not their
that's
fault.
the education of the
yeah.
world. You get a lot of these younger kids that don't know what they're doing. All they want to do is take out their frustrations.
It's honestly, it's a lot of older people. Though.
No, I saw the one with that young girl. She started just taking the groceries out of her buggy and throwing them on the floor. Like, it's these people's fault for having rules.
Yeah, they're just
Right.
working by the rules, man. They can't help that.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You every place you go has a rule. Now, in my generation, it was no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Yeah.
People just put on shirts and shoes, and they
Yeah.
got served. If it says no shirt, no shoes, no mask, put on a
Just
daggone
put it-
mask. Go get your stuff as soon as you get out of
Yeah.
there. You can rip it off. You can flush it down the toilet. You can put it in a paper shredder. You can do whatever you want to do
Yeah,
with it.
it's not
But
that
when
big of
you
a deal to
going
wear
into-
for like
right.
20 minutes.
Oh, that's the other
Right.
thing that disgusts me too. Is you see these people, they take the mask off, they throw them in the parking lots.
They're all on the floor everywhere.
Oh, and you know what? Like, my wife totally freaks out on people that wear gloves, like the rubber gloves, because everything you're touching, you're contaminating and spreading it on,
Everything.
And then you
Just
gotta
wash your
love,
hands.
Yeah, you gotta love the people that are on their cell phone with the rubber gloves.
Right. So you've contaminated your cell phone, your keys, your steering wheel, your door handle. You've just washed your hands,
Yeah.
and you don't have to worry about any of that.
You know what? You
What?
think about everything you touch every day long, all day long. It drives you nuts now.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
your
my
phone.
God.
I mean, think if you touch
Yeah.
anything and then you touch your phone, you touch your keys, your door, like it just
You go to the
Right.
store, people give you change, and you're like, man, where was that change at? So you put it in your pocket. The first thing I do is get the hand sanitizer out.
Like, think about your cards too.
go.
If you're not paying with cash, you stick your card in the chip reader. Who knows like whose card
Right.
was in there?
Well, Nicole and I, we're old school. Even though we're younger than you, Mike, by a couple of years, not many, but we just got that Google Pay where you don't gotta touch nothing. You just use the phone.
That's why I used Apple Pay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Nicole's in her glory. She's just likes to buy everything now. So
It's just
she's-
it sucks. So
she's
some not all
she's
places
out there
take
just
it though.
touching it. Like the other
They're
day,
making it a little too easy.
the other day I forgot my wallet. We were at the grocery store. She's like, "All right, go get your wallet." So I go out and get my wallet. And she's all excited. She already paid because she used her Google thing. I was like, but it's
Look, now
stu-
what else is she getting when you're not around with
Oh,
that?
yeah, that's
exactly.
interesting.
And you know what sucks is like she gets notified from the bank if I buy anything. So like I can't do Christmas gifts, I can't do anniversary gifts, I can't do birthday gifts
Oh,
without her
man.
knowing. Yeah,
Yeah,
sneaky.
you gotta flip that script, man. You gotta
But you
no
know what?
notifications.
It sucks because like New Orleans is a huge city where you want the people to come in to
Tourists,
spend their
huge
money,
tourists.
the tourists. Football
Right.
season, I don't know if the Saints are doing anything as far as fans. I mean,
So far,
the
no.
Cowboys are the only team in the East that are going to allow fans.
Right.
It's
And
just
I think they're going to have to make a change to that. I think that perhaps they may have been a little bit hasty just saying that they're going to have them for the whole season. I think circumstances are going to dictate what they do. And I also think local government is going to have a hand in dictating what they do
Yeah.
as well. I mean, I know Jerry Jones likes to think he rules the world, but
Yeah.
he actually kind of doesn't. But I mean, he's going to have to make a statement some kind of way, somehow, on player safety.
Yeah, now you're
as far as that issue is
you're a
concerned.
season ticket holder, are you not?
Yeah, I am.
And obviously, like the Saints being one of the teams, they said that they're having no fans. I think for as first game at least.
Right.
Have you been contacted at all by anybody to let you know that, or if there's possibly going to
absolutely.
be?
Yeah, what happened was I've actually turned in my tickets for the season because I'm not going to any of the games.
Yeah, gotcha.
Because I don't think they're going to have any fans for any games this season at all in the Dome. To
Yeah.
be perfectly honest with you.
Which sucks.
Yeah, and even if they would, I'm just not at the comfort level where I want to be around
Yeah.
30, 40, 50,000 people, even though that's a reduced size crowd. I'm not willing to take that risk or risk giving someone something that I may have.
Even though you had it already?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing saying that you can't catch it again.
That's
There's
true.
reports that
That
people
is
have
so
gotten it
true.
twice. It's definitely true.
You know what? I
Yeah.
used to be the COVID freaking maniac. I'd come home, look at the map.
Oh, your map would be open 24/7.
John Hopkins map, see what the numbers were. But you know what? I've heard so much crap from the
Text
Trump
messages every
administration.
day.
I've heard so much stuff where it doesn't affect the young kids. It's affecting young kids now. It's affecting old kids. It doesn't matter who you are. It's affecting everybody.
Yeah. The thing about it, too, Chris, is that just like any new phenomenon, be it a disease or whatever the case may be, there's so much more they don't know than they do know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I'm always going to err on the side of caution.
You have to.
You know, and I know, look, I know for a fact that if 40,000 people get together somewhere, it's going to spread.
Oh, yeah.
There's just no doubt, because you have so many people that are asymptomatic.
So many people that don't
And-
want to wear their mask or
But-
are going to
yeah,
touch other people,
yeah.
high five, sneeze,
Look
coughs.
what it's doing to the colleges.
All of that. Right.
Well, you're having colleges that they don't care. These kids are partying, and their numbers are surging
Look-
through the roof right now.
Look at North
And they're
Carolina.
closing after a week.
Yeah, after a
Carolina
week.
was open a week.
Yeah, would they have 2.5% positive rate, and after 5 days of school, it went to 13.
These
Right.
kids don't care. These kids don't care.
Well, what do you think
Well-
about college football? I mean, you have some of these divisions that already said, no, we're not doing it. Now you have parents on uproar, and, you know, they want the right for their kids to play. And then you have schools like Alabama that say, we're not doing it for the money, we just want to play. But
Right.
when does the safety get involved?
You unfortunately,
It's a tough one.
yeah, but unfortunately, player safety, even pre-COVID, has always been something that's been a secondary concern for organized sports.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad to say, you know, it took this huge thing about concussions, and these players have been getting concussions for 100 years.
Oh, God,
man.
yeah.
And only in the last 10, 12 years has there been some type of protocol to pull players out of games when they suspect a concussion. And still, they haven't perfected it, because you still have events where players are displaying concussive symptoms and
Yep.
they're right back in the game after a couple plays.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unfortunately, player safety has never really, especially in football, has never been on the forefront. It's always about winning. You know,
Yeah.
it's always about winning. So,
And I'm glad.
to me, I really don't. I would be fine if they canceled the season, but I also understand the point of these players. I mean, they worked their butts
Yeah.
off for years to do this, so I get it. So even if they could arrange it to where there are no fans, I think I'd be more comfortable with that. But they would still have to have some type protocols to affect the players. Because I mean, we even talk about Drew Brees, man. He had this whole diatribe a couple weeks ago about how he's getting away from licking his fingers every time
Yeah.
he's about to throw the ball. I mean, he just does that incessantly. And
Yeah,
you think about it now, and even before that, my wife would be like, "Oh, that is so disgusting.
Well,
I
you
can't believe it does that."
take COVID out of the situation. He's
Right.
putting his hand on a sweaty ass of a center.
Right.
I
And
mean,
then the football's been on the ground where they've been spitting and coughing and all this stuff. And look at Steph Curry. He takes his mouthpiece out, he puts it behind his ear, he puts it in his sock. Oh my God! And then just puts it right back in his mouth. And I'm
Oh,
like,
man.
dude, what are you doing? That's gotta be, you know, it's like a petri dish in his mouth
Yeah.
after every game, you know.
well, you know,
but-
we just had Jeff Kuhn on, who he you know who Kuhn is.
John
he played
Kuhn.
for John
John
Kuhn.
Yeah.
I keep saying Jeff.
Uh-huh.
We had him on, and he said, for football, for college, he's like, you have 100+ players on the team. It's hard to keep them isolated. You can't do it.
Especially college.
He said
kids, man.
anyone is guaranteed to get drafted between the first, I think he said the first and the third round, or first and fourth round.
Yeah, something like that.
He's like, these kids aren't going to play. He's like, what
Right.
they need to do is get an agent, start working on their craft, start working on their game at these training facilities, and focus on
Right.
the draft. Because if you go to spring football, you're not going to have a kid like a Trevor Lawrence risking his career, because they'll be playing during the draft.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do
That's
feel bad.
exactly
I
right.
feel bad for some of these kids who are really pushing to get drafted. They're on the fence. You know, you feel bad. They're getting cut of their season, their senior year. But at the same time, man, like I also hope some of these universities are thinking player safety and not just we want some money.
But you know what? I don't feel as bad for the college players as I do for the high school players.
Yeah,
because they're trying to get to the college level.
Right.
that's true. It's just been a weird year, man. Like, how do you even? What do you do? You know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
I don't have the answers for it. I
don't think there are any answers, but I do think that it should be something that maybe it shouldn't be on a conference level. I think it should be at an NCAA level where these decisions are made, because you could have 9 conferences that say they're not going to play ball, 4 that do. So are these 4 conferences just going to play each other?
Yeah.
The Mountain West and the Missouri Valley Conference. I mean, it should be a uniform thing where everyone agrees to this, and in conjunction with the NFL to possibly delay the draft until after this delayed season is over.
Yeah.
But we can't seem to get that spirit of cooperation, or maybe they just haven't thought of everybody sitting at the table and saying, hey, let's get the presidents of all these conferences in one room together or on one Zoom call, along with the draft representatives from the NFL, and say, hey, let's talk this out to where we don't have these kids playing when draft time comes, so that you guys can do a proper evaluation and the kids get to have this season.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think it would be that difficult, but hey.
Well, there's a lot of speculation that these other 2 conferences of the Power 5 are going to end up canceling. They're saying that they pushed their games back now to September 26th, that eventually they're going to have to cancel. Just because, I guess Clemson had like 40+. Texas Tech just had 21, and the coach said onward and upward, we're just going to quarantine them. Coach Joe.
LSU's offensive line. Yeah, the whole offensive line. Or is it the offense or defensive line? They're all sick.
Yeah, I think it's the offensive, because Coach Joe said that they're still planning on playing.
Wow.
And I get it. I understand. This is big money. I think Nebraska was the one that was throwing a fit, but they make $100+ million just in TV revenue.
Right.
The divisions make billions of dollars. I mean, I understand it, but you gotta, put safety first. I mean, the Big Ten, they're talking about playing in January, but playing inside domes.
Right.
I don't know.
It's going to be a test for them. But what's eventually going to have to happen is that, they're going to have to sit down and talk. Because I'll be honest with you, as much as the SEC is planning their season out, I honestly am going to be shocked if they get to play the season out. I'm really going to be shocked if they do. I think cooler heads are going to prevail, and at least they may delay the start, because I don't think September's a week and a half away.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's not even a week and a half. It's a week.
Next week.
So I don't think that's enough time for them to, especially with more and more players at these major colleges getting sick.
Yeah. You gotta think the Rock's probably sitting back with his arms crossed, thinking this is good for me.
Yeah.
All these young talents that probably aren't gonna get a chance to get drafted and still want to play football. They're just gonna come right to him.
The thing that concerns me is pro football starts September 13th. They just had a couple days ago. They had 77 positive tests that were all actually negative.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you know what's funny is you say that I've heard a lot of friends from different college campuses that there's a lot of kids that their parents don't want them to take the test, because these kids, there's a lot of false tests going on, like you just said. And what sucks for these kids is they have to quarantine for 2 weeks in their dorms without leaving, not seeing anybody.
Yes.
And they're like, I don't want to take a test and it possibly be a what's the word I'm looking for? What I
false
just say?
positive.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the word for some reason.
But my thing is say the Saints are playing the Cowboys, and Saturday morning rolls around, they got to get their test, and Drew Brees and like 5 Saints players test positive,
and then they lose, and then the next day says, "Oh, it was he actually didn't have it."
So why don't they need to come up with? First of all, they got to come up with something. If you can't play that Sunday or Saturday, because they're going to do Saturday Sunday games, play them during the week. Do like the baseball season's doing. But if 77 tests were just false positives, what's going on in the country?
Yeah.
What's our real numbers at?
Well, didn't they come out and say multiple times that like the numbers are definitely a lot more exaggerated than what they really are?
Yeah.
Because of the not knowing and mixing up different like symptoms and everything, and I don't know, man.
Yeah, like we said earlier, man. There's just so much that
there's so much unknown. There's so much unknown.
And then some folks are trying these different tests that are less reliable than others, and they're getting the results back in 5 minutes instead of a couple of days, so where the results are really not undergoing the proper analysis. And we really didn't have a whole lot with the false positive tests in the very beginning when they were just doing the nose swabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when they started doing the saliva and all this the other type testing, is when we started having this phenomenon of having a few false positives.
Yeah.
Stick with what works until the new stuff is shaking out the bugs
It's
and it's
efficient.
proven.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have all these false positives in the very beginning. You were positive, and and I understand that there's some people that show absolutely no symptoms. I
Yeah.
get that too.
Yeah.
But I don't think that should be a reason to not test someone, because you could give it to someone that doesn't have as strong an immune system as you. They could have a compromised immune system and get very sick
Almost
from
die,
the very
yeah.
same strain that caused you zero symptoms.
Yeah.
So we just
Everybody's
have to be-
different.
yeah.
But you know what's
just
gonna
got-
suck? What's gonna suck is when the flu comes around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they change it that is throwing up a symptom of COVID? Because I know at first it
I-
wasn't.
To be honest with you, I don't even know.
But I
anymore.
heard that
I'm not sure.
I heard they changed the symptoms.
Don't even know. You know more than I do now because I don't even pay attention to it. If I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm
sick,
not-
I'm not worried.
Yeah, that part I'm not really I'm not really sure about. Oh wow. I'm not really sure about that part with the the getting physically ill as far as that being a symptom. I thought I remembered that being maybe one of the symptoms that some folks exhibited, but I'm not really sure if
You ever
that's
you ever get like your throat starts to hurt a little bit when you wake up one
No.
morning? You're like, oh god,
I did-
am I getting it? Like,
we
Yeah,
went to
what's
our
going on?
what's
Hey,
going on?
We
Yeah.
went to our church group last night, and I said, you know what? I'm not fearing anything anymore because you know what? Fear not is listed in the Bible 365 times. That's one for each day. And God said, fear not. Why? Because I am with you. That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me.
That is good
There
enough.
you go.
But Mike, the last time you were on, we had an amazing conversation about racism, equality, the whole 9 yards. And I know there's a lot of people in this world that don't like to talk about it. They'd rather sit behind a keyboard, type some hateful crap, hit enter, and don't answer anything.
Right.
And I want to do it again because you know what? It's educational for us, and it's still going on. We all know what happened in Wisconsin. We all seen the video. And
Actually, I didn't want to watch the video this time.
there are
actually.
still people out
Right.
there that say it's justified, and I'm sorry. I don't care what the guy did. I don't care that he was getting to his car. The number one thing is if our officers get trained to the point where they know what they're doing, lethal force should be the last thing they use.
You
There-
see, you just said the key thing. You just said the key thing. You said deadly lethal force should be the last option.
Yes,
But so many times
it's the first.
when the person is of color, it's always the first option.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's incredible to me that there are still folks out here. And look, and let me just say this before we get started. I'm not here to condemn the police in any way, shape, or form, because like we said on the prior podcast, I have lots of friends that are police officers, and they do the right thing.
Yeah.
But, I read this quote by Chris Rock today, and he said that the police force seems to be the only profession in public safety that are okay with a few bad apples.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have bad apples if you're an airline pilot.
No,
No.
no.
If you work for an airline company and you know there's a bad pilot, they get that pilot out of there.
And
Yeah.
we're not flying.
But for some reason, when there's a bad police officer, the other officers know who the bad apples are, but they don't do anything to get them out of those forces.
Yeah.
So when you sit there with your arms folded and you do nothing and something bad happens and people condemn the entire institution, you're part of the blame.
Yep.
And the reason you're part of the blame is because you didn't see something and make yourself part of the solution.
Yeah.
Look,
So you are part of the blame when something like this happens. And say, for instance, take Dallas. And I know we keep bringing up Dallas for some reason. Gee whiz, man, just don't get it.
if we're talking football, it's a good thing.
Man, right. But when the police officers were gunned down in Dallas, when the police officers were gunned down here in Baton Rouge, when the three officers were gunned down in, I think it was San Jose, California, a few months ago, sitting in a coffee shop. I mean, if you want the public to empathize when something like this happens, you got to do the right thing when one of your kind does something wrong. When George Floyd was strangled, and I'm gonna be honest with you, before there was the huge uproar, there wasn't a single police officer that came out and said this is wrong until the uproar started, until people stood up and said, "Oh my God, they strangled this man to death on worldwide television."
Yeah.
Then they stood up. But guess what? This guy had been disciplined so many times. They knew he was a bad apple.
Yeah,
but he was still on the force.
And that's one of the things I want to get into with you then. You know, you look at the media, you look at all the, and we talked about before, the blue checks on Twitter and Instagram and all these platforms. They all come out and they say something, but they don't have a solution. And I think one of the main solutions, and I'm a nobody. Nobody knows me, you know. I think one of the things that they should start talking about is better education for the officers. I think that they should have to go through a longer training period. Bigger background checks on these guys. I mean, clearly the guy that killed George Floyd hated black people. He had "Make America White Again" hat on his Facebook.
Right.
I think they should.
Let me tell you this too, and this is, it's funny we're talking about this now. I went to my nephew to get a haircut a couple nights ago, and on my way leaving their home, I was going to stop at a buddy of mine's house, and I needed to get gas, so I stopped to get some gas at the Shell station right near UNO by the lakefront.
Okay.
Pulled into the Shell station. I grabbed my wallet, put it in my pocket. I was putting my mask on, and UNO and Southern University of New Orleans are pretty close to one another. So Southern University has a small police force that, you know, kind of makes sure things are okay on campus.
Okay.
One of their vans, one of their SUVs pulled up in front of the gas station right near the entrance. And the officer in the vehicle, I was looking at him and I said, "My God, this guy looks so familiar." I was trying to figure out, and I sat there for like 30 seconds trying to figure out who this guy was. And then all of a sudden it hit me. You know, I'm a claims adjuster for Progressive Insurance.
Okay.
I had a claim with this gentleman. He was in an accident, and I went to meet with him to discuss his injury with him. Well, he was also an officer with New Orleans Police Department at that time. Maybe about a year or so after that accident, he was charged with malfeasance in office, filing false police reports, and a bevy of other charges. And he ended up being fired. Lo and behold, he's a police officer for another police force now.
For the university.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
How do you get, because as me being a claims adjuster, if I get fired for violation with my duties as a claims adjuster,
You're never getting a job in that field again.
I can never work in that field again.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when a police officer is fired for cause,
Yeah.
they can go right to, and sometimes it's in the same locality, and get rehired as a police officer carrying a gun, administering justice, more or less. How does that happen?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
the only
bad.
area, because if a pilot gets fired for malfeasance, he can't go somewhere else and be a pilot.
It's true.
That's a bad process of hiring. And that's one of the things. They have to do better background checks. You know, maybe these officers should have like a job, like a maybe take psychology classes or something, because you deal with people every day. You know, I think they need like some kind of military training where you learn how to take people to the ground without using deadly force. We talked about that before. Maybe have two officers in a car where one, like when you go to England and you go to Ireland, there's no firearms on police at all unless they
None.
call in for SWAT or something like that.
Right.
Now, they don't have guns like we have over there. They have stabbings. When Nicole and I were over there in Ireland, that's all you heard about was stabbings. But maybe we should do something like that where you have two officers working together where one has deadly force and one doesn't, where it's a last option. Like you have to break a seal on your on your holster or something, and that's the last thing. I mean, I don't know. These are all like, this is getting the solution going. Yeah. Because right now you don't hear anything about solutions.
And what's crazy about what we were just talking about with the guy that just actually got shot is, sure, he was resisting arrest. Sure, they tased him, but there's a lot of cops there.
There's
and-
no reason he should have made it
no
to the car.
No, yeah.
Right.
What I get to
Absolutely not. They
Yeah.
followed him to his car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they followed him with the gun out.
And what
Right.
what I get to is if you were in the cop's point of view, I get it. Like if he's reaching for his car, sure, could there have been a gun there? Could there have been a knife? But to shoot him seven times,
That's
I get it. I
ridiculous.
get it.
That's why you don't let him get
Yeah, don't let him get
to
to
the
the car.
vehicle.
Yes.
He walked from the back of one side of the vehicle all the way around to the front and then to the middle on the opposite side of the car. Was not stopped. How does that happen? You don't do. That's like, how many officers were there out there? Like 7?
Yeah, I think there was at least 4.
Yeah.
I think there was at least 4.
You couldn't tackle this guy and get him to the ground.
And
I
it's,
know.
it's like with these shootings too. It's like, and I'm not saying like if I was a cop, like I feel like I'd shoot him in the leg or something, like one time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if I had to, but like
Right.
I couldn't shoot somebody seven times.
But that's why
in the back.
I think if you had one guy with non-lethal like rubber bullets, one guy, whoever the supervisor is, like have crews or something. I don't know. These are solutions. Have one guy that has lethal use of a gun. You know, you shoot him with rubber bullets, that might de-escalate it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
No, I agree.
I just
I agree. But you also have a mentality with a lot of police forces that the gun is usually
The
they
first
feel
option.
like their first option, their last option, their only option. You know, and look, I don't own a gun.
I don't
I'm
either.
never gonna have a gun in my house.
I don't
It's
like
just-
'em.
it's just not gonna happen. So I guess my viewpoint may be a bit biased. I honestly feel like the gun laws in this country are way too liberal.
Hmm.
And when I say liberal, I mean anybody can get a gun.
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty easy actually. Yeah.
But for some reason, conservative voices who are always the supposedly the champion of the police in the country are the ones that that seem to be trumpeting the cause for people to have as many guns as they want to.
Yeah.
But when something happens to a police officer, they're the first ones to point the finger at someone else. I'm like,
well, did you see it?
you can't have it both ways to where you're supporting the cause and then you're supporting the problem.
Problem is we manufacture too many guns here. There's too many on the street.
Did you see that thing that's going around? Where, I don't know what state it was, but they were protesting, and that 17-year-old white
Yeah,
kid
that
had
was-
an AR in his
Wisconsin.
hand. Let me tell you something.
Wisconsin.
If I was somebody in that crowd or a cop, I don't care if you're white, black. If there's a 17-year-old walking around with is an AKR, AR.
AR.
Something, yeah,
Someone
yeah,
needs to
yeah.
step in and
But-
say like, "What is this
but
kid doing?"
The sad thing
wait a
is
minute.
he
He
walked down the
walked by
street,
so
walked by
many
the
police
police.
officers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like, how are you? Like, that's why I said like I don't care what color you are. Like, if somebody walks past me with an AR and he's
Now,
17,
do you think that someone with my complexion would have been able to walk down that street carrying an AR-15
No.
in the middle of a protest and not get tackled by like 50 officers?
And that's what's sad.
There's no way.
That's what's
There's
sad.
no way. So when you have that double standard, like when this guy in
I think he killed
Carolina,
2 people too,
He did.
didn't he?
He
yeah,
did.
killed 2 and seriously injured 1. When this guy shot these people in this church in South Carolina
Oh, I
a
remember
couple
that.
years ago,
Yes.
when the police arrested him, they brought him to get something to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to stop and let that sink in for a minute. They fed this guy before they brought him to the jailhouse.
That's crazy.
Do you really think something like that would happen to someone of color?
It's crazy.
You-
He would have never survived.
And what's
There's no, he wouldn't have
I know.
survived.
And that kid with the kid, that 17-year-old kid, you think with like how many school shootings
First
have
of all,
gone
where
on?
the
how many-
hell's his parents?
Yeah. If I
His
was,
parents drove him.
oh my
Oh.
gosh.
They drove him to the protest, picked him up after the protest, and brought him home, knowing that he was a minor in possession of a firearm, crossing state lines, because he crossed state lines.
Yeah, he
to
came
get
from
there.
Illinois or something like that, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
I would have been scared if I was there at a protest. Like even if I was just there watching, I would have been like either to one of the cops or something. Like, does anyone see this kid with a gun? And, like,
Right.
that could
Right.
easily he
Mike-
could easily put this crowd down in a second if he wanted to.
Mike, I want to ask you a
Right.
serious question. Are
Sure.
you concerned about like a civil war?
I don't know, man. I'll
Okay,
be
'cause-
honest with you. But here's the other thing too. This country's been through sort of what we're going through now in '68. Nobody thought we would survive 68. Everybody thought that the country would come apart
Yeah.
in 68. 68, and compared to what we're going through now, way worse. Because we were dealing with racism, we were dealing with sexism, we were dealing with homophobia, they were dealing with Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
they were dealing with Nixon, they were dealing with there were so many issues on the plate. You had Kennedy, RFK being assassinated, you had King being
It's
assassinated,
crazy.
you had Evers being assassinated. I mean, it was just, nobody thought that the country would survive in 68, but it did.
It's just,
Because
it's
the
crazy what's
better
going on,
angel, right, because the better angels stood up and said, we just can't do this. We can't have this. We have to make some changes. So we have to pass the Voting Rights Act. We have to pass the Civil Rights Act. And it's a shame that you have to pass acts like that in order to guarantee some citizens the rights that most citizens enjoy daily without any type of repercussions. You know, it's a shame that, and let me tell you, look, the Constitution isn't perfect. If the Constitution was perfect, they wouldn't have all these amendments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, but you see a wrong, you fix it. But the issue in this country so much is that some people see wrong and don't want to make a conscious decision to
Yeah.
fix it, even when they're in a position to fix it in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
They will not do it. Look at what's going on with the off subject for a second, with the Postal Service right now.
Yeah.
Now, you know, we're in the middle of a COVID epidemic.
Yep.
You know that a lot of people are going to want to mail in their ballots. But what does the government do? He puts a person in charge, and immediately they start pulling sorting machines, pulling mailboxes off, cutting overtime, cutting staff. But yet you're getting ready for an influx of about 40 million pieces of mail within a 3 or 4 week span.
Yeah.
On the outside looking in, it looks like voter suppression.
It does.
And it smells like voter suppression, and it tastes like voter suppression, because it is voter suppression. If you have your vote to some people that supposedly makes no difference, I don't understand why there are so many institutions that are going through so much to inhibit you from voting. The government should be the facilitator of voting.
You know-
Open early voting.
You know what kills me with today's technology, and with all these like apps and all these different websites. Why can't we just vote from home?
Because you think about how easy
Right.
it is to hack one of those apps, though.
But you think about it. It's easy to throw mail away.
It is.
There's so much ways. You know what?
It's easy to do anything nowadays.
It doesn't matter who wins this election. There's going to be complaints on both sides.
Absolutely.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not voting. I'm not voting. I've given up on politics. I've given up on watching the news. My whole thing is I'm putting God first. You know,
I understand.
and you look at what's going on, and you hear the thing that disgusts me the most is you hear what people say, and you know, when I was younger, I really didn't know about racism. When I moved to New Orleans, I didn't know about racism. I didn't know about hate. But people are openly hateful today, and they don't hide it.
No.
They don't hide it.
Well, the issue is when you have someone in office, and I'm talking about the president,
Yeah.
that basically tells folk it's okay if you hate someone of a different race. It's fine. I can get on TV and call this the Chinese flu, or I can call people hombres, or say, oh, look at my African American friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I can grab them by their genitals. I mean, when you have someone that makes bad behavior okay, people that are ready to exhibit bad behavior, it's like a green light to them.
Yeah.
They're just going to do it. You know, they're just going to do it. I mean, you know, I say it all the time, and I'll say it again. The United States has the least informed electorate of any free voting country.
Our
in the world.
government's a mess. It's outdated.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
outdated.
Now, let me ask you real quick about, a lot of sports are not playing right now. They're just postponing. Do you think that this will shine light on anything? Like, do you think it will make a change? Like, it will get some wheels spinning for the government or anybody?
I don't. And go ahead, Mike. You
Well-
answer, but I'll answer then too.
Right. Here's what I think. I think that with people of wealth and privilege, and I'm not talking about people that have money.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people that are wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about the people that pay millionaires. I'm not talking about the people that are millionaires. I'm
Talking about
talking about
billionaires.
the people that pay millionaires. Right. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. When you hit those people in the pocket, a lot of times it changes their social conscious. And what I mean when I say that is when somebody wealthy has a threat to their wealth, they either do one of two things. Either they lash out at the people that are a threat to that wealth, or they sit and listen to those people so that they can understand what they're saying, get them on their side so they can maintain that wealth.
Yeah.
Because at the bottom line, it's all about money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, it's all about money.
do you honestly think billionaires actually care right now? I mean, they have the power. They have the power to donate, to make change, to educate
Yeah,
these. But do you think them kneeling or them sitting out or them doing what they're doing is really going to hurt them, especially going through a pandemic?
I think what hurts them is if the players don't play.
Yeah, I mean the whole season. I
Yeah,
mean, if you look at NBA, they already
yeah.
said
I
yes, we're
mean,
coming back tomorrow already.
right. Yeah, I'm right, which broke my heart.
Yeah.
But to me, if you're gonna think about the lunch counter boycotts,
Mm-hmm.
thing about it is it was okay for these owners to discriminate against black folk wanting to sit at the counter because the black folk just went to the back, ordered their food, and got it, and they still spent their money there.
Yeah.
But the minute they stopped spending their money there is when it hit the rich people in the pocket. There was no social awakening to say, oh my God, this is unfair. It was like, oh my God, I'm losing money.
Yeah.
I need to fix this. I don't know if I told you guys the story about what happened in Birmingham back in the 60s. There was this group of, and Birmingham, Alabama is really
Mm-hmm.
named after Birmingham, England, the steel town, because both have like a thriving steel industry.
Didn't
At
even
least they
know that.
did.
Look at that,
Yeah,
educating us
yeah,
100%.
at least they did. So Japan has always been um, wanting to put steel plants in places in the United States, cheaper to do it here and then have it exported to them.
Yeah.
So there were a group of businessmen from Alabama that went to Tokyo. This was in the 60s, like the 67, 66, 67. And they wanted to meet with a couple of men that own like 4 different Japanese steel companies because they wanted these gentlemen to open steel factories in Birmingham,
Yeah.
Alabama. Sitting in this big conference room, food laid out, drinks, the whole 9 yards. But the 2 guys that owned the steel company, nowhere to be found. So the 2 of the executives that here from Alabama, one was a government official and one owned another steel manufacturing company that wanted them to come there and build. Went into another conference room where the 2 owners were sitting. The 2 owners were watching television. They were watching Bull Connor and his firemen shoot water hoses on American citizens
Wow.
for protesting because they wanted the right to vote. And when those 2 guys walked in there, they were immediately embarrassed. And one of the Japanese businessmen told them, they said, if you think for a second we're going to build our factory in a country that does this to their own citizens, you got another thing coming.
I remember
Those
seeing
business,
videos of
right?
that, but I
Yeah.
never knew it was in Alabama.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's sad.
Those gentlemen went back to Alabama, sat down with the mayor and the city council, and told them, if we don't fix this, we're going to be bankrupt. We
Yeah.
have no hope of getting any kind of industry that can maintain jobs here to move here because of what we're doing to these people.
See, and that's the thing that
That's
kills
when
me,
it
man.
stopped.
I
That's
remember
when it stopped.
hearing stories like that during that time. Like other countries were looking like you think about like I think it was one of the wars. Like they looked at us like you guys are dealing with your own problems, like separation,
but
and
that's
it's like they're making fun of us because we were doing that.
That's the thing that kills me. Like, my heart is so to the point where I could never bring pain or hate towards anyone like that. And to see people of all colors hate each other like that, it's just, where do we go wrong? Where do we go wrong as a society? Where do we go wrong?
That's easy. That's easy. That's not a difficult answer. When you choose to bring another race to another world in bondage, you immediately poison anything you do from that point forward.
Mm-hmm.
When you decide to come to a land and kill the people that are there, to take their land, to take what's valuable, to take their resources,
Mm-hmm.
you poison anything good that could possibly become of that. I mean, you poison it from the word go. From 1619, this country was poisoned, and now we're reaping those fruits that we sowed back in those days.
So many years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think. You think about it for a minute. There was this general that got on TV, and we talked about this before. They talked about you can't subjugate, and sooner or later they're going to say enough. They're going to rise up, and if you don't listen to our voices, you're going to listen to their violence.
Yeah.
Because guess what? When the Americans were sick of the British, they rebelled. And they didn't rebel by walking in the streets with signs.
Yeah.
They started shooting British soldiers. They started throwing their not paying their taxes. They started throng tea in the harbor.
You're like a historian, man. You know a lot.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a class right now.
But when people in this country who've attained this level of comfort see people that haven't been able to attain that level of comfort finally say enough is enough and rebel, then it's anarchy. Then it's they hate their country. Let me tell you something. Black people love this country. Don't get it twisted. Don't let anybody tell you anything different, despite any signs you see. Because if they didn't love this country, they wouldn't be out there in the street.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be protesting. But
It's a good way to look at it.
Right. There comes a time when you have to feel my pain, because I've talked to you. I've written books. I've done movies. We've done documentaries. We've done protests. We've tried to pass bills. We've had to go to the Supreme Court. We've done all of those things, and it still has not changed. The only thing sometimes Americans respond to is a punch in the face.
Honestly, for a second there, I thought you were talking about like you making movies and books, and I was like, man, dude, I didn't know that about you.
No.
I was like,
but
man,
a lot of times, I always say it's two places where people respond.
Yeah.
But what's the answer, Mike? Like we talked about this before. Before we came on the air, I said about LeBron James and those guys that have like millions and millions of followers. Do you think if they got a platform where you have 10 to 15 to 20 million people outside the White House, a platform where you have speakers speaking and talking about how can we fix this and coming up with something positive?
Let me ask you this. Do you think it would help?
I do.
Because we had a march on Washington, and there were almost 1 million people there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from all 48 states. And it got their attention, but it only got their attention for a few minutes.
But I think it's different now. I think it's different now because the way the violence has changed.
And social media.
And I think that you have more black athletes of power that have huge followings that can get into their own areas where they live and make a change.
Did you see you saw the tweet that LeBron put out yesterday?
The one that said F this or something like that or whatever?
Yeah. Did you look at the responses to that tweet?
I did not.
But
some of the most hateful and vile things that in my years I've ever read online.
Hey, my response was on there. It was actually pretty nice.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are going to be some that were LeBron, we understand. But, man, there was some of them, they were calling him a monkey. And, I mean, all kind of different stuff. And I'm saying to myself, as many positive things as this young man has done for this country with a high school education, just playing basketball, he's opened schools. He's funded foundations. I mean, he has donated his time, and not just his money, but he donates his time, which is the most valuable asset anybody can ever donate.
And you know what's funny is none of those comments, nobody would ever say that to his face.
No, because you have a big backbone when you're behind your computer.
Absolutely not. So for him to be fed up to say something like that online, and he's not shy about saying it on TV either.
Yeah.
So there's no with him like, I'll say it online and then I'll delete the comment. But for him to be in a position, and this man is a multimillionaire. But guess what? When you're driving in your car at 10:30 at night and you're going down, what is it, 50, I-50, going through southern Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and you get pulled over by a state trooper, and you're a black man in that car by yourself, the only thing that police officer is going to see is you being a threat, even though he is the one that instigated it by pulling you over, just for being your complexion in a high-end vehicle. Stephen A. Smith talked about that yesterday. He was in New York. And, if you don't know who Stephen A. Smith is,
Oh, I know who he is.
you don't have to be a sports fan or anything. Like, just his
turn on
voice,
ESPN, look for the guy yelling.
He hates the
all he kinda
Cowboys.
do. Yeah, he does. I think he secretly loves them because he loves being able to drag for him. But I digress. But, he talked about being pulled over a few weeks ago, had his daughter in the backseat of the car, had no idea what he was being pulled over for, rolled down all four windows of his vehicle so that the police officer could clearly see everything going on inside of his car and see that he had his child in the back seat. Police officer walks up to the car and with the nastiest tone ever, "Give me your license and registration." No problem. Gives him his license and registration. He says, "Do you mind telling me what you pulled me over for?" Police officer goes on a tirade. "You don't get to effing tell me what I pulled you over for.
Yeah, you do.
I effing pull you not for us. Not for us. Not for people that look like me. No." So he said within 45 seconds, there were 4 squad cars there. In no time.
For one guy.
He said, for one guy. So another police officer walks up to the driver's side of the car where the officer is just berating Stephen A. He looks in the car, realizes who he is, immediately grabs the other officer, pulls him to the back of the car, talks to him for like 15 seconds. The guy comes back, gives him his license registration. "Have a good day." No explanation.
Stephen A. can put that out there to the world.
And he did anyway.
Yep, he's got that platform. Anyway.
But to me, I'm putting the officer's name out.
Yep.
I'm putting out everything on him because the only way we're going to get these things changed is to put the spotlight on the ones that are bad.
Well, that's the thing.
And if you don't want to be embarrassed as a police officer, get rid of the ones that are no good.
Exactly.
Just like I talked about the pilot thing. Get rid of the ones that are no good. It's the only profession where the bad ones are allowed to fester.
The thing that's sad is there's probably more good police than there are bad police.
I 100% agree with you.
And that's what we talked about earlier. We have to have better hiring process. And I don't know, like when you're a state cop, you go through the academy, the whole 9 yards. I don't know what the regulations are to be a regular cop.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Right.
because they had someone on the radio today that's from the Dallas SWAT, and he said that most police officers aren't properly trained on firing a gun.
Absolutely. They're not properly trained on interacting with the community. They're not properly trained on interacting with the community that they're charged with policing, which is probably the biggest deficiency.
Whatever
because
happened?
a lot of times they take privileges when they deal with people of color that they would never do when they deal with someone white. They don't talk to them the same way. They don't physically handle them the same way. They just don't treat them the same way because they don't think of them as a human.
Whatever
They
happened
think
to
of
those
them
groups?
as trouble.
Whatever happened to those neighborhood groups? Remember, they used to wear like the red pants, the white shirts, and the red beanies.
The Guardian Angels?
Whatever happened to them? When we had those problems back in the early 80s and 90s, we had those groups. We had neighborhood leaders.
Yeah. You know what happened with them?
Hmm.
The police said, "We don't want them here." And they started arresting them.
See,
Yeah,
we need that stuff.
The Guardian Angels technically still exist in New York City, but they don't nearly have the clout and authority that they did back in the late 70s and early 80s because police departments didn't want them interfering when they were the ones that were really invested in those communities that they were working in.
Yeah.
And able to diffuse situations and stop situations. But the police don't want that because see what happens if you don't have crime and you don't have people to arrest, You don't need as many policemen. And when you don't have as many policemen, then police lose their jobs.
You know, I talked about this at work the other day because we have a bunch of people of different races in our work, and we have open dialogue, which is awesome. I love it because we're a real tight group at work, and we said, you know, everyone in Chicago is saying Trump needs to bring in the National Guard. We need a National Guard. People are dying by the hundreds. I said, and could you imagine our National Guard being in Chicago, getting shot at, and you see our own troops killing American people on the street?
Yeah, absolutely not. There's no way that the governor nor the mayor would ever allow them to come into those streets.
Oh, no
because
way. Chaos,
because
man.
just what we talked about before. Those people are going in there already with an attitude. Well, it's us against them. We're going to shoot first and ask questions later.
Yeah.
They're not invested in the community.
Yeah.
Which is the reason that state militias actually exist. Every state has an army and Army National Guard, because when those people are called out, those people are actually invested in the communities that they go to help, they go to serve. You know, you want that relationship with those people that you're going to help, because if you don't have a relationship with them, it's an us against them mentality.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to, you know, a long time ago when not Dutch Morial, but Mark Morial was mayor, he had gotten an ordinance passed where the police officers that worked in New Orleans needed to be New Orleans residents. And so many people were against it. Oh, we don't want to live in the city and blah, blah, blah. But you need to be invested in the community you police.
Yeah, absolutely.
You absolutely need to be invested in that community, because if you don't, the only thing you do, you treat it as a 9-to-5 and you drive to the suburbs at the end of the day. You drive to Slidell, or you drive to Jefferson Parish, or you drive to St. John Parish. But if you're invested in the community you police, you're going to have an entirely different attitude how you interact with people that you come into contact with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that is key. That's key for any type. Because guess what? When you run for any other type of government office, you can't live in Vermont and run for governor in New Hampshire.
No.
You have to live in Vermont. I mean, it's the same thing. And that's why I didn't understand why there was such a big ruckus. And he wasn't saying, hey, if you want to be a policeman, you got to move to New Orleans, because he kind of grandfathered some things in, but he gave them some time to say, hey, if you want to keep this job as an NOPD officer, sooner or later, you're going to need to locate to the city, because we want you to be fully invested. Because what happens is they come to the city to work, and then they take their tax base outside of the city, and it just robs the city of resources.
That happens in New Jersey and New York all the time. They
in
live
New
across
Jersey,
the border from each other.
example.
Because let's face it, most people can't afford to live in New York, especially Manhattan.
Right, perfect example. And he even had programs to help policemen subsidize their housing costs, moving payments for moving. So it wasn't just he say, hey, you got to move here and that's that. There were programs in place to assist them, to get them, you know, incentives to come to the city and live. Live in the area where you earn your paycheck. And I don't have a problem with that, but I see so many Mississippi license plates buzz by me on the interstate headed out of town at 5:30 every day, because the people aren't invested. And then those are the same ones to where the city has a lack of resources and they can't react when something happens immediately. Oh, look at New Orleans. This, it's that, now. But you're the very problem, because you're taking the very resources that the city needs to be able to handle these issues. You're taking them to Gulfport or Biloxi or Diamond Head or, wherever in Harrison or Hancock County you live. But you're not investing those resources back in this city, the city that, quite frankly, gives you your paycheck every week.
Yep.
So I mean, you can't have it both ways with stuff like that. If you're going to invest in something, you need to invest in it all the way. If it fails, it fails.
I agree.
You're not going to fall off a cliff. But if you want to do the right thing, you got to do the right thing all the way. You can't dip your toe in.
Yeah.
You got to jump in.
Well, hey, Mike, it is an absolute pleasure to always have you on this podcast.
Always eye-opening.
We are sitting here by a window, and it is thundering and lightning like crazy, and I'm looking at all this electronics that we're talking into. But, we're definitely going to have you on again. I love
Always
having
enjoy
these
it.
dialogues with you. I love
Guys.
talking. And this is the best thing that the world needs is conversation.
I agree. You guys are family. Anytime you want
Absolutely.
me to come on, please give me a call.
Well,
Absolutely.
you know what's funny, real quick, before you go? Juan put up a post about something about color one day, and I wrote on there, I try very hard to get my color right. I go through like a stage. I'm white in the winter, I'm red in the early summer, and I'm mocha by August. But
Man, look, better stay out of that sun, man. Let me tell you.
But we love having you on, man.
We're happy that you and your family are doing good too.
Yes.
We are. We're
And-
good, man. I appreciate that, man. Look, anytime you guys want me to come back on, you know how to get me.
Oh, it's gonna
Much
happen.
love to you and your family.
It's gonna happen because the football season's kicking off soon.
Oh my God. There we go.
We'll have
Yes.
to talk about why the Saints are 0-4 and Tom Brady's winning that division.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God, dude. Did you fall and hit your head again? Come on, man.
I deal with it all year, man. It's okay.
All right, Mike, love you. Hope
Love
you
you too, man.
you guys
You
stay
guys
safe
be
down
good.
there and you have a great evening.
You too, buddy. Y'all take care now.
Good night.
All right, God bless.
All right, buddy. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. That was fun. It was really fun.
Man, I'm sitting here talking. I'm looking out the window and I just saw that lightning strike and that big freaking boom. I'm like, oh god,
Dude,
we
hit the
gotta,
hour
we gotta
mark.
get off. We
When
gotta
hit
get
the
off.
hour
We gotta get
mark,
off.
I was like, man, dude, it's so hot in this room.
I don't know if you can get shocked by lightning through a headset and through this board
Dude,
and everything.
maybe I don't know. So,
But this will be up on all platforms. Next week we're probably gonna have one podcast, and then Ty is heading away for a while. He's
yeah.
going on vacation.
So
So
I'm in contact with an athlete. I didn't tell you yet, but
So
we're hoping. We're hoping. It's a big one.
I don't know if I know how to record myself. If I do, I'll probably have a guest on and try it. But it'll
You
probably
know
be a
it. Noah can be
debacle.
my substitute.
But we love you guys. Keep on following us on Twitter. We're up to almost 1,400 people now.
Wow.
It's a true blessing, and we keep doing our work. And you guys keep following us. Love it.
All right, guys. Well, you guys have a good one. We'll see you next time.
God bless.